Hello and welcome to Love Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I think that is how Ben typically starts it, Chuck. I am Brian Limperopulos, Vice President at IAM. I am joined by Chuck White, our fearless president at the association. Chuck, we're taking over. We are taking over today, right?
Ben's a has-been. He's done. He's gone. We don't care a darn thing about him. I think he's on a flight from Chicago or something. But again, when he gets back to Texas, when he gets home, I'm sure his email will be full of people saying, Chuck and Brian stole your show. We don't even want you to come back. So we're ready. We are so ready.
I've cleared my schedule. I have 4 p.m. open for the rest of the month. All right. We're taking this thing over, not just today, but in perpetuity.
Well, Brian, remember who pays your salary. I don't think we're getting Ben Cross money for doing this today.
No, we're definitely not getting Ben Cross money.
No, that's just not Ben Cross money. So, welcome to everyone to the show. We're excited to be able to take over for at least a day. We might give it back to Ben. But again, we've got a message that we want to push out because, Brian, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. We're going to make it rain up in here today, and we've got money to give away to people for their education. It's all about education, and it's about this gentleman really right here. I want to bring him out. This is I can't even get him straight here in front of me. This is Mr. Alan F. Walsteader. He is the namesake for IAM's Scholarship Fund. Our scholarship fund, I think, is just incredible. We offer up to 10 $5,000 scholarships every year. Plus, we just added an additional scholarship for $2,500. We talk about maybe a little bit later. But your young folks have the opportunity for $5,000. And it's so funny. We've got to come on Love and Relo to try to give this money away because people don't want to take it. Come on, people. We got to recognize this gentleman. We'll tell you about him. He was an amazing man, and IAM wouldn't exist without him. But we've got to support these young people. He was all in favor of education, Harvard graduate. I think Harvard at 16 years old, something like that, Brian. And, education was key for him. And we're all about giving the money away. So we're excited about today.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about this great scholarship fund, but I just want to, I've been breaking down game tape of Ben Cross for the last 24 hours. I didn't sleep last night, Chuck. I drank a lot of coffee, and he's always recognizing people in the chat, and we already got some hecklers. I got to tell you, Dan Bradley. Our colleague at the International Association of Movers, we dressed up today because Ben set such a high standard. I could not force myself to put on a tie, though. That was
him and his bow ties as well, too. I can't go down that road. I'm sorry. Lake Fennell. What has Lake Fennell got to say? It's getting well on the right foot. Maryland has never. What did he just say? And the spring. What did he say? He just said, so for those of you who don't know, I am a former University of Maryland Terrapin, and we played football. And back in the day, we played real football. No, it wasn't with leather helmets, and this is not a knot on the side of my head from that. But I'll have Mr. Fennell, that in my junior year at Maryland, we went 11-0 for the regular season. Played in the Cotton Bowl when the Cotton Bowl was a major bowl, and unfortunately didn't win that, but we'll just go on past that. So
how long ago was that?
Really don't want to talk about that either, Brian. That's a bit of a sore spot for me. So never mind. Well, Let's move on.
We've got some great people in the chats already. Sandra Clary from EDC, Nancy Irvine from the Canadian Association of Movers. We are not wearing the same socks, as at least I don't think we are, Chuck. Joanna Lindstrom from Sweden, Reva von Bakel from the Netherlands, Matt Odijk from Denmark. Great to see everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I mean, so we're going to talk about our great scholarship fund at the association. Chuck explained the purpose of it. We want to make sure that people in our industry, are not deterred from getting an education due to money. This is a wonderful scholarship fund that we have set up at the association for the past 20 years. So Chuck, from my perspective, I think I'm supposed to go into the history of it. And so, Mr. Walsteader was our general counsel for how long?
For about 50 years. So the association was started in, again, I got to bring him back. This will be a reoccurring theme here. So the association was started in 1962. It was started in 1962, just outside of Washington, D.C., in the living room of Alan F. Walsteader. By the way, we've got to figure out what that F is. I was always afraid of this gentleman. He was an amazing man, a wonderful spirit, but let me tell you what, he was larger than life, and I would shake in my boots when he entered the room. But I was always afraid to ask him what the F was for. Never did get that. But we're going to have a guest on that will be able to illuminate us on that. But he started the association in 1962 in his room with about 30 individuals who wanted to form a group to be their advocate first to the U.S. Department of Defense, because they were all providers of service in that program. And the association obviously has grown immensely since then, with way in excess of 2,000 member companies in 170 countries. That's a real point of emphasis, because many times our members look at this scholarship fund as U.S. centric, but it is available to anyone that is a member of IAM, all of their employees, the children of their employees. And so we really need to find a way to have folks understand how to take full advantage of this. Recently, Brian, we just extended the time frame to be able to put in an application because we only had 3 or 4 applications. People need to understand this is $5,000 US that we are trying to give away, and people don't want to take it. It's crazy.
Well, and yeah, I mean, it's absolutely a great opportunity. And we have people like Webbe and Lake who are sitting over these organizations with a lot of employees there. And I'm sure there are individuals at Vorman or Nielsen or at some of the companies who are on this call today, on this webcast, who have people who could take advantage. So the purpose of what we're trying to do is just to raise awareness about this great benefit for all of you. And, taking it back to the history, Chuck, I think it's safe to say, without Alan, do we have jobs today? Does IAM exist without somebody like Mr. Walsteader?
To be honest, I probably would be in jail without Mr. Walsteader, because I wouldn't have a job. I'd be a vagrant wandering around the streets of Washington, D.C. probably. But no, he really did take me under his wing. Again, this is a gentleman who made history in the transportation arena legally. He set so many precedents and really sat on our executive committee since the first day of the association, and was then, after he stopped working full time, was the general counsel emeritus for the association. He sat on the board and was the general counsel for our Shippers Association, another incorporated organization. See, I knew this guy, by the way, Brian, this guy, Steve Weidekamp, the president at the California Moving and Storage Association. I knew he was going to be on here because he always touts the California Moving and Storage Association's scholarship program as the best in the industry. It's given away so much money. He gives away those little scholarships, those $1,000, those $2,000. We blow it up, Brian. We make a difference in people's lives, I believe, with that $5,000, $100,000 scholarship.
Yeah, no, I knew I had to bring it up just because you were getting hot under the collar about it in our prep call about it. So I knew when Steve dropped that comment that I had to push that out. But yeah, Chuck, so I mean, you alluded to the fact that you were afraid of Mr. Walsteader, that he was a bit intimidating. Yeah, I'd like to just bring him to life a little bit. Can you share kind of how Mr. Walsteader was a bit intimidating, how he gave you that stellar legal education that you use every single day at the association?
Yeah, so Alan was very much involved in the U.S. Department of Defense and all the U.S. government programs. And he would call me on a daily basis, usually 3 or 4 times a day. And he would always come in with the same question for the day. And he'd want me to update. I say, Mr. Walsteader, we just talked about that a little while ago. I know we have, but I need to know this. And he would just rip me. And the reason was he wanted to be sure I was going to give him the same background information, the same details every single time, so that he was 100% sure that he was getting the right information. I think everybody knows, but maybe not. When I first, I was in the industry for 11 years. I became a board member, an executive committee for IAM for 4 years, and was lucky enough to be hired by Terry Head as the director of government and military relations for the association. And that I've been here now for 17 years, the last 2.5 as the president. But during much of that first 14, 15 years or so, Alan was still very active. And oh my goodness, he just kept me on my toes. He is intimidating. And he would say, well, you said "and" the last time, and you said "or" this time. I mean, he had this steel trap mind that was amazing. So the second I could look at the phone, caller ID, I'd see it was Alan. I'd sit back, take a deep breath and go, okay, here we go. And knew that I was going to have to be on my P's and Q's the entire time. He was an impressive man.
And I think that's what I truly remember about him, was his attention to detail, and how if you were careless in any instance, he immediately found that element of carelessness and really called you on it. And he really made you, as you said, mind your P's and Q's and sit up and take notice of what actually needs to be communicated, and not just kind of what just flows out of your brain. So I have some experiences with Mr. Walsteader as well. I do recall that Terry Head used to say something along the lines of, why would I ever need to go to law school? I went to the finest law school, the Alan F. Walsteader School of Law. So he was such a good educator. And I think that's where the impetus came to set up the scholarship fund, was his passion for education.
No question about it. I mean, it was a tribute to him for someone who had really been the pillar for our organization, at the time known as the Household Good Forwarders Association of America, Inc. I had to take a deep breath to even get through that. Thank God we changed it. Yeah, HAGFA. Oh God, that was brutal. We'd go on Capitol Hill and have to talk about what we do. It would take us a half an hour for them to figure out what a Forwarders Association was. But again, changing the name, Mr. Walsteader was very, very involved in that name change, because he was a cutting edge kind of person. And, he had named the association, he had started the association, he had written the bylaws for the association, but he was open to change. And when the concept of a name change was brought forward, he was in full support of it, because there had been change in the association. It had morphed into something so much more than what they ever envisioned it could. And he thought the name was a better representation of what the association had become. So, he wasn't one to hold the association back. In fact, he was the impetus behind propelling it forward. So a great man.
Well, Chuck, I want to just recognize a few people. Again, we got Matt O'Dyke in the chat. He's asking the $1 million question. Well, not quite $1 million, but will the scholarship fund be open for industry-related education like IAM training or FEDE ERC? Yes, I will talk about that later. We got some other people who I want to shout out. So Matt, just hold on for that. Hello, Elena. Happy that you've joined us today. Thanks for coming. And at this point, I'd like to bring on, a special guest, Miss Ann Walsteader. And let me just bring her forward. I think I can. So, guys, I'm
going to bring her dad out so that she's got her memories here.
Welcome, Ann, to Love Relo. This is Ann's first appearance on Love Relo. And I just want to say a few words about Ann. She joined our scholarship fund board of directors about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that, a little bit less. I can't remember exactly. But, after Mr. Walsteader passed, we felt like at the association that we needed to really kind of connect back to the Walsteader family. Not just Alan was instrumental in the founding of the association. Joyce, Ann's mother, was instrumental as well. And she's in our Hall of Honor at the International Association of Movers. So it was really important to reestablish that connection with the Walsteader family, bring them back into the fold with the scholarship fund. But also, Ann has a range of experiences and expertise that we're able to draw off of for the scholarship fund. So, Ann, welcome to the program. Welcome to being our accomplice in taking over Love Relo today.
Thank you so much, Brian, Chuck, and hey, Dad. Thank you. That sounds great. So I appreciate that. It's a little creepy there, but that's nice. That's okay. And I think even creepier, Chuck, is seeing your arm draped over his shoulder, but that's all right too.
Yeah, we did that too. And I don't know if you know this. I mean, we might have talked about it in our pre-meeting, but I used to be known for doing skits at our conference, and so we may be related somehow because I played Alan's long lost brother in one of these skits. So somehow I feel a closeness to you. Maybe we are. Maybe you're my niece or something.
I was going to say, well, Uncle Chuck. That's really nice. So
Wow.
Ann did not get the check in the mail this year, Chuck. I think you owe her for her birthday. And Chuck and I, as we were prepping for this, Chuck had a question that I think we've all been wondering about. So, Chuck, I'll let you ask this important question that we've been wondering about for years.
Okay. Well, again, it's all about family ties here, but we were, even as close as we were to Mr. Walsteader, we were always afraid to ask. It is Alan F. Walsteader, but we never knew what the F was. Can you shine a little light on that for us?
Yeah, a little bit. And the interesting thing is, rarely did he use the middle name. It was always just F period. It stands for Fred. Frederick. That is just Fred.
Just Fred.
Wow. Okay. Well, to me, he was not a Fred. I do.
Fred. And he's not afraid, but he's not a Fred. And so,
Amen.
So, and the only thing in thinking about it, perhaps it's because his mother's name began with an F. Her name was Faye, so perhaps how they chose Fred. And my brother is also an Alan Fred Walsteader, and his son is also an Alan F. Walsteader. So
we have a third, and your brother is a lawyer as well. Is that not correct?
Yes, he is. He is a lawyer. He did not opt to go into the family business, which probably was a good thing. I think that could have been a little challenging.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Here's just a little sidelight. Alan had a firm, Denning and Walsteader, which I never met Mr. Denning before. Maybe you have, but when Alan and I first got to know each other, he had maintained the name. Mr. Denning was no longer involved. and he had an associate there that he had worked with for, 30 years or more. And it was nothing to pick up the phone, hear Alan on the other end of the phone, and then he would just turn away and start screaming at this poor associate of his and go on for 5 minutes while I kind of hung there waiting. And the poor guy was like the whipping dog. And then he'd come back to me, and then I started shaking because I was afraid now he's all riled up. He's going to come after me. So, yeah, he was a firebrand. There's no question about it. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad he took that all out on you guys, because actually, as a dad, he wasn't really quite like that. So that's okay. He must have gotten it all done with you. So that's a positive.
That's right. Well, good.
And I think he took it out on the government too.
That's true as well.
Yeah,
definitely true.
Well, that's where he knew he was revered and feared, I think, on the government side of things, because there were so many court cases that he was involved with that were instrumental, that were groundbreaking in the transportation arena. He led the front. He was so well known in the legal side of the transportation arena. He's definitely up there on Mount Rushmore, no question.
So
go ahead. Brian.
Yeah, and so just kind of what we're trying to do here is just kind of again bring Mr. Walsteader to life. Show the connection between the scholarship fund and its namesake. So I'm just curious. From our perspective, why did you step forward? Why is the scholarship fund important to you?
So I will say it has a lot to do with Terry Head, in fact. Yeah. And the year that my father passed away, there was an annual meeting shortly thereafter, I don't know, maybe several months after. And Terry reached out, actually to me as well as both of my siblings, and asked if any of us would like to attend the annual meeting, that you all were going to do a nice sort of remembrance for my dad. And even though I live in California, it ended up I was able to go. And so when I said yes, little did I know that then Terry said, "Hey, would you want to say a few words at the breakfast for the scholarship fund?" And so I was so touched that he thought to ask. And that was actually a pretty pivotal time. Like, it was obviously met with very mixed emotions, but mostly very, very positive and happy emotions. And so from there, I remember I wrote a note to Terry and let him know how much that participation meant to me. And so then after that, I think conversations evolved. I spoke with Andrea, and she had asked if I'd be interested, and I said I would love to. And I think the idea and the true desire to carry on a legacy that has been so important both to the association as well as to both my mom and dad is super important, and it's fun. It sort of makes me smile, and so that's kind of why.
Well, it's wonderful for us to have that connection to Mr. Walsteader, and the thing that you bring is not only that connection, but the intelligence and the experience outside of our arena. You bring to us new perspectives, new ideas, new ways to look at issues and problems that it has really been a real godsend, I think, for us to spring some new life into our board. So we really, and I'm not just saying that because you're here, we've had these discussions. It's really wonderful to have that new perspective, that outside perspective come to us. So thank you for that.
Well, that's very, very thoughtful. So I appreciate that.
Well, and I think that's, something that we can get across here. This is not just about sparking new applications for the scholarship fund or donations. There's people in the audience that, we would love to engage. If you want to be a part of propelling the scholarship fund forward, get in touch with us because it's a great organization, and it's going to do so much more in the future. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But, since Ann, you referenced Terry Head, I'm going to call out Mr. Lake Fennell here from Nielsen Van and Storage down in South Carolina. And, he says at conferences when we're in the large meetings with government officials, I always thought Terry Head was the smartest guy in the room, except when Alan was also in the room. He commanded the room with his intelligence every time. So I thought it was apt to post that because of that anecdote you just shared. So, I think there's it's wonderful that we get to live on this legacy with you and hopefully take it forward with the people in the audience and with whom they're connected.
I would just bring up the point again, the scholarship fund, and we'll talk about how we're looking to expand maybe on some of its uses. But the scholarship fund is really not only for IAM member companies and the employees and dependents. We have the ability to open it up to any student. If someone wants to pay $25 to become a student member of the association, then they can, because they're now a member of the association, they can then apply for one of these $5,000 scholarships. So it's really open to anyone, but we hope to bring people in to and have them find out a little bit more about moving and mobility, and then through their education, maybe return back to this industry and be participants in it and be able to offer something positive. So it really is a wide open scholarship fund that we hope that many of those that are on the broadcast, but are not necessarily an IAM member, will consider and pass along to others.
Yeah, so just tagging on to that, and I'm not sure if I got some echo there, but let me.
You're okay.
You guys getting the echo? Okay.
No.
There are many people in the moving and mobility, the mobility side of the Love and Relo audience, and what I want to communicate to all of you is that even if you're in corporate housing or something that's tangentially related, if you're a part of the relocation space, you can qualify for this scholarship. So we just want everybody to know that if you're taking university courses, college courses, technical school courses, and you're not necessarily an IAM member, this is an industry initiative. We can get you eligible as long as you are taking those critical courses. That's really what the spirit of the program is.
Right. And any thoughts? I'd love to know what your dad was like from the father-daughter perspective. You mentioned he wasn't that firebrand that I always knew and came to love.
Yeah, Chuck, it's interesting because I was saying that, and then I was thinking, well, maybe that's not 100% accurate, because I was actually, as you were talking, I was kind of reflecting on one of the traditions always, as long as I can remember, is we always had dinner together. And my father worked like clockwork, right? He, went to the office and then he'd come home he'd walk in at 6:20 or something like that. We'd sit down at dinner. And I will say there certainly was a tad of cross-examination that happened, I think, around the dinner table. And, back then, obviously there are no cell phones, there's no TV at dinner time. I mean, you just sit down and talk. And, I do remember, if you, like a typical child, how was your day? Fine, right? And that was not an answer that you would give, because then that would only be the start of the questions that would ensue.
You were on the stand at that point.
Definitely on the stand. And I will say that my two sons also witnessed that, the grandsons, as it continued, just sort of, and it's an interesting sort of combination of caring and probing. And he was able to sort of strike that balance. Yeah. And, sometimes it felt like cross-examination, but then truly it was all about caring, and you knew that. I remember, I was 16 years old, and I vividly remember coming back from a college tour that I did on my own, right? When I went to look at a college, and my dad said, so what did you really like about this one college, right? And when I came back, I said I really liked one of them. And I I said at 16, 17, I said, well, the boys were like really cute and the trees were like really pretty. And there was like dead silence, right? and clearly that did not satisfy the analytical nature of my father. So then we probed into the academics and all of that stuff. And but I think that the focus on education and attention to detail, all of what you all mentioned, it comes across obviously in his professional world, which we really didn't see that much of, but even also just in our family life. And education was always something that he, encouraged and gave us the best opportunities possible. All three of us have had graduate school education opportunities, which has been lovely. And you're right, he did go to Harvard at 16 or 17 and went to Harvard Law School after the Navy, I believe. And, those are big shoes to fill, I will say. It's, and I also find it funny that, you all mentioned sort of he's bigger than life and he's intimidating. The reality is he was like 5'8".
Yeah.
Right?
Oh.
He's not like, and so.
And I'm 6'2", but I swore I was always looking up to him. I don't know how that happened, but my God, he was larger than life. Yeah.
I know. And this is what my sons say. I mean, I have one son who's 6'4", the other is 6 feet tall, right? And they'll ask me, and at one point, my father dressed impeccably, right? He had beautiful clothing, beautiful suits. And I remember like the last visit with one of my 6 foot tall son, my father was saying, well, I'm not going to use any of these suits. Scott, when I kick off, why don't you take my suits? Why don't you try them on to see if this is true? Like when he was at his place. So there's my 6 foot son trying them on, the sleeves come up to my son's elbows. It looks like, knickers or something for the pants. And my dad was like, I think you could get them altered. They'll work just fine, right?
That's right.
So
That's
anyway, it is he certainly was larger to life to me and also to his grandkids. And it's because, he offered a lot on many different fronts. So
no question. One quick story. And then Brian, if you have the letter that we were going to read from one of the folks that took advantage of the scholarship, if you could get that ready. But the way the story goes, and again, it goes back to my friend Steve Whitekamp, who is the president of the California Moving and Storage Association. And I went out to speak at one of the meetings. They have chapters for their organization. I spoke at the San Diego chapter and sat at a table with a young man I'd never met before, and started just having a little banter back and forth with Steve about the different scholarship funds, something we always do. He talks about the greatness of their program, which is a spectacular program. And I always puff my chest out and talk about our scholarship program. But there was a gentleman sitting next to me, and he said, can I get a little bit more information about your scholarship fund? And I gave him the information, didn't really think much about it. Well, that's been about a decade ago. And 2 of his children have been winners of the scholarship fund, our scholarship fund. One of them a multiple time winner. And, it really is just amazing what effect a scholarship can have on a young person's life. And the fact that we just happen to meet at a table, have a discussion, and he and I now are great friends because of what came out of that discussion and what it meant for his children. Brian is going to read just a note from one of those 2 kids that, not kids now, adults, but who wanted to say thank you to us about the scholarship program.
Yeah, and this was from Morgan Bloom, who works now for an IAM member, Mover Search Marketing. And Morgan wrote to us, and she couldn't be on the stream today, but this is what she said. I'm so honored to have been a recipient of this scholarship. Receiving this money made all the difference in the world to me. By lightening my financial burden, the scholarship helped me focus on the most important aspect of school, which is learning. And it got me one step closer to graduating. I was able to graduate from UC Santa Barbara with a 3.8 GPA. And then after college, I pursued a career in digital marketing And as luck would have it, I now work in the relocation industry. It wouldn't have been possible without the generous help of the scholarship fund, and for that, I am eternally grateful. So, and this is exactly the impact we want. We want people to be able to take this money, to use it towards their schooling, and then bring it back. Have these talented individuals come back and apply it to our industry.
So Brian, one of the key aspects of the scholarship fund is being able to raise the funds that we need to support it. We've got a great corpus, a great nucleus of money, but each year we're hoping to give $50,000 in scholarship money. And so we need to replenish that every year. And so it's through the works of and the efforts of volunteers that we are able to achieve that. And the current fundraising, the head of fundraising for the AFW Scholarship Fund is a gentleman by the name of Don Goldberg. So can we bring Don forward?
Oh, I did it right. Okay.
Oh, no. First off, I have to say there is one problem with Don, and it's the fact that he's a New York Giant fan. And I have to get on my knees and pray for him every night in hopes that he will repent of that sin. But okay. Good afternoon, Don.
Don, welcome. Welcome to the stream.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So,
okay.
Chuck was talking about, the need for fundraising, and you are our fundraising chair. Over the course of the scholarship fund lifetime, we've given out 106 scholarships, and those are $5,000 each. And so that works out to $530,000 that the scholarship fund has given out alone, just on these direct scholarships. We have some other things that we've dispersed money to, and I'd like to maybe talk about New Jersey Seeds in a moment. But Don, can you tell us, talk to us about, your role with the scholarship fund and your connection to Mr. Walsteader?
Sure. I really enjoy being the fundraising chair. And there's two reasons. And I've always been involved with the scholarship, either as helping out, trying to raise funds, or donating with my company or myself. There's two reasons why. I don't want another student to go through what I did when I went to college. When I was in high school, my father's business went bankrupt. It was a tough time, and things were rough. And my dad basically had to start over. So I watched this all happen in high school. My dad actually, he ran one of the biggest port agents in New York and Baltimore back in the late 80s. And that went bankrupt. He basically went back on the truck, and he was driving a truck. And my mom is dispatching out of the office in our home. It was our garage. And my dad had a massive heart attack while he was driving in Brooklyn. So he had to go back in the office. It was a really tough time, and he basically had to relearn the business and got into the forwarding aspect. By that time, I went off to Northeastern University in Boston. I was in their transportation and logistics program, which is a terrific school. But I was basically, we did get financial aid. However, financial aid didn't cover everything. Didn't really cover the books, didn't cover the living expenses. Boston's expensive city, and it didn't cover my beer tab.
No.
So,
Well, that was way more than our scholarship can cover. That's for sure.
Right. So, I was literally living off $25 to $50 a week. And, my mom would send me checks. The checks were bouncing. I was going to Northeastern, the bursar's office, and I was giving checks, and I'd get a phone call and be like, hey, get back here, this check bounced, and they cut me off. So had that scholarship been there when I was going to college, it would have been great. It would have solved a lot of problems, made life a little easier for us.
Well, and you have somebody there who, it wasn't there for you when you were at Northeastern, but you got somebody in the room with you who was able to maybe help out with those educational expenses because of the scholarship fund. right? And Sean, can you kind of talk about your experience? Sean won the scholarship fund. When did you win it, Sean?
Yes, absolutely. I think it was my sophomore or junior year, so maybe 2012. I was working at Gridiron from 7th grade through high school, and
Wow.
Aren't there child labor laws associated with that in New Jersey?
It was definitely by choice. It was family business. My mom was also in the forwarding company. I just enjoyed being around the people and the work. And I'm just extremely grateful from IAM and the Walsteader Scholarship Fund to give me that opportunity to dive deeper in my educational studies.
And Sean, what role do you serve at Gridiron right now?
Currently now, I came back and I'm the CFO of Gridiron.
Beautiful.
Oh my. Impressive.
Yeah, I actually have 2 other recipients that work here as well. They didn't want to really be on camera, but I have a gentleman that's downstairs. He's in our Department of State. He's a coordinator. Ron Raymond, he was a past recipient. And then I also have a gentleman that's in our trucking division. His name's Raymond Padilla. He was a recipient as well. So we took, full use of the scholarship. I mean, I hammer my guys, look, this scholarship's here and, it's going to help you. And another reason why was that I had the absolute pleasure to hire Mr. Walsteader for a kind of a problem that we had back in 2004. So back in 2004, we were moving a lot of Code 8 air shipments for the Department of Defense coming in from Japan. And a little bit of a perfect storm happened where China really started shipping imports into the U.S. That year, I think it was, I know at least 3 hurricanes hit Florida. So the transportation infrastructure was a little disrupted. And we couldn't move our freight. I mean, the air freight rates just went sky high. Our consolidator in Japan could not get space. The SDDC at that time called us in Gridiron for a carrier review board. So, they wanted us to come.
And that's not, for those folks that are not aware, that's not a good thing when the Department of Defense calls you in for a review board. That's not good.
That's when you call the professionals. That's when you call Mr. Walsteader.
Exactly. Right. So I called Alan. He worked with us on it. Brian Gordon, my vice president, and I, we drove down to Alan's office the day before the carrier review board. And I remember sitting there. We got there at 9:00, and I remember by 2:00 I was absolutely exhausted. He railed me and he beat me up. He, chewed me up, spit me out. And I remember just sitting there. I was like this. And, he looked at me. I remember this to this day. And he looked at me and just smiled. Like he knew he had me. And I remember that look on his face. And I just smiled back. And I was like, I know exactly what you're doing. And he prepared us so well. And the best part about it was that he had me from 9 to 3. Then Brian came in, and then he started with Brian. And I just sat back and I laughed. And, he did the same thing to Brian. And we went into that carrier review board. It was nothing. It was nothing compared to what we did with Alan the day before. He prepared us so well. Great guy, terrific guy. And I'm honored that I could, help out the scholarship fund.
Well, we appreciate your efforts. Again, we're a nonprofit trade association, and we've got 11 people that work on our staff. We can't do what we do without volunteers that are willing to step forth and help. Janet Turner, love Janet Turner, and she says that she'd like to help out with the scholarship committee. Janet, be careful what you ask for. We're coming after you. We're going to get you involved in this. So be prepared to go to work, because these folks spend, a lot of their own personal time devoted to fundraising, devoted to meeting and supplying information. So be ready to dig in and go to work. Georgia Angle.
Yeah, speaking of another, super volunteer, Georgia George has been former chair of IAM, is a board member of our scholarship fund, and she brings up something really great. Besides being just a super volunteer, I do want to highlight this. She recognizes another one of our super volunteers from the past, Miss Jackie Agner, and we have a special award that we give out with our scholarship fund to any scholarship winner who's done outstanding work in the community as well. And that award is specifically named in memory of Jackie Agner, longtime volunteer, longtime servant to the association and the industry.
Yeah, served on our executive committee. I served with Jackie. Jackie passed away a few years ago, and it was a great loss for all of us associated with IAM, thus the reason that we started this separate scholarship for $2,500 for Jackie. So now yearly we try to give out $52,500 in scholarships. So obviously it can be impactful on young people's lives. Don, do you want to talk at all about what the fundraising efforts that will be going on? IAM, whoa, Mr. Walsteader, don't fall. We have our annual meeting coming up October 13 through 16. It's at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Orlando, Florida. And we're do a fundraising event there, and also that's where the scholarships are awarded and named. And Don, you want to talk a little bit about what we're doing in terms of raising money at the annual meeting?
Absolutely. So there's a few different mechanisms to donate to the fund. The easiest is the website. You can go to the IAM website, and you'll see under affiliate groups there's the Alan F. Walsteader Scholarship Fund, and there's a link to donate. You can donate when you would sign up for the convention. We all hope that everyone is going to be able to attend, and you can do a donation while you're doing a sign up. There's a question that'll pop up if you'd like to donate to the fund. The YP event in Orlando, once we have it settled, we're going to set aside about 100 tickets at a certain price. We still have the details to go over, but we're going to be selling tickets to raise scholarship money for the fund for about $250 a piece. We did it last year in Chicago. It was a huge success, or the year before, sorry. You can also, over the next couple months, we're going to do a reach out. So if you know me, I know you, you're probably going to get an email from me to donate. I'm going to start shooting out emails. I usually work on this during the weekends. Also, I'm working with the core membership. We're going to do a really big reach out to educate everybody about the fund and its benefits, and also ask for donations. We are also doing little things to make it fun. Fantasy football leagues. We did one this past year with about 10 executives, and it worked out great for 9 of us. And but fortunately, Chuck was in the league and finished last. And there you see his. There you go.
I am the first of the last, and I won a trophy, and I'm happy for it.
Yeah. So we also test ran a March Madness tournament, which I think was a huge success. Next year, I hope to make it much bigger. I mean, I think this year we only had about 20 entries. That's it, but it worked out terrific. It raised about $1,000 for the fund, and maybe next year we can get that March Madness throughout the world and get thousands, for the fund. So,
yeah, and these are really fun ways to give money and do well with it. Always. The YP Social Mixer is always a great event. This year, it's kind of hard to plan that event because of the times we're in. But, Don has put forth outstanding effort to help lead forward on this front and help bring in the money so we can get it out to the students who actually need it. And I do want to highlight one specific thing that the board did last year, which was in light of COVID, they decided to set aside $25,000 to grant money to 3 nonprofit organizations around the world who are helping students struggling through COVID. And so this scholarship fund, yes, goes to students in our industry, but also is having an impact for struggling students around the world as well. So Don's leading forth those efforts to bring the money in. So kudos to you, Don.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. The other.
Hold on one second. Let's just get this out of the way. Dan Bradley from IAM asks, who won the March Madness tourney? Who wants to take this one on? I don't feel like
I do. He came out of nowhere with some wild last minute a choice for the winner of the tournament. I don't know. He somehow lucked into Baylor winning and pulled it out. But it's a one-time deal. He's a one-time wonder. Forget that guy. He's a one-time wonder.
Hey, Brian, can I add one more thing, Brian?
Please.
So it just popped into my head. I think what I'm going to do for the rest of May, right? We have until this weekend. I'm going to personally match any donation that comes in via the website up to $10,000. If we can get some of the viewers, that are online now to go to the website and do a donation, quick donation, 5, 10, 5,000, 10,000. I will personally match it up to $10,000 if we can get it in by May 31st.
Well, I'm definitely gonna put in some money because I want to see you put your money where your mouth is, Don.
Yeah, me too. I love seeing you dig in your pocket. I mean, you lose enough money on the Giants, so we might as well dig in there a little deeper and pull some of that before you lose it all.
Hey, leave it alone. That's an incredible offer. Quit picking on Don. Would you, okay? I'm eternally grateful, Don. I think that's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And if Lakeland Fennell's still listening, I'm probably going to call him and ask for some better rates after we get off this. So.
He is still in the chat. So he's there. He's asking about, let me just bring this up. He's asking about potentially an IAM golf tournament coming up that can help contribute as well. I know, things are still coming together. One of the things that might come as part of our events at the annual meeting, and I want to hear from everybody in the chat who's coming to the annual meeting. But we might be doing an event at a place called Top Golf, and so that there might be a golf tournament there where we can kind of have some fun with the event at Top Golf.
All right.
You guys, but let me just build on that 1 second. My father sort of what he said he wanted on his tombstone was like, I'd rather be known as a lousy golfer, a lousy lawyer, or something like that. Like that was one of his things. So golf he took up later in life, but it became a passion for him for quite some time. But being a lawyer was truly his heart. So. Well,
I know that late in his life, even up to as late as in his early 90s, he could still go out and walk 9 holes of golf. He was an amazing person. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, incredible.
So Brian, we're heading toward the end of the hour. I want to go back to Matthew O'Dyke had a question about how we might be expanding the scholarship fund to cover more than just university credits. Can you talk a little bit about that, Brian, about what we are working on for the next iteration?
Yeah, thanks, Chuck, and thanks, Matt. So the Scholarship Fund Board has been looking at how they expand the relevance and the impact of the Scholarship Fund and the money they have to the industry we're serving. And so the idea that we've hit on, and we are about 95% of the way towards rolling this out, is making funding available to students in our industry, learners, industry professionals. If they are going to take a course through an approved industry training program, they can apply to the Scholarship Fund and win funding to offset those costs. So let's take a practical example. I want to go take some course with ERC, and it's something that I think would be beneficial to my career. I can apply to ERC and say, I can apply to the Scholarship Fund and say, I'm taking this course through ERC. I'd like to apply for and win funding to offset those costs. You go through an application process. Once we've approved it, we let ERC know that they can extend a credit to that learner who can then take that course for that cheaper fee. So that's kind of the relevance or the impact that we're looking to extend to our whole audience here. A lot of people don't necessarily go back to university or college to get additional training. They go through the various industry training programs like IAM Learning, like the FIDI Academy, like LACMA's training, like ERC's, all of their training. There's a number of industry training programs that are not necessarily accredited universities, colleges, or technical schools, but they have huge value for the people we serve and are critical towards them not only advancing their career, but also advancing their company. And so that's the next step for the scholarship fund, and we're really excited to roll that out soon. We're in touch with all the training programs, and we're just ironing out the final details before we roll that out to the industry.
Yeah, and one of the other points that you made there was not only university programs, but technical schools. One of the things that our industry and the entire trucking industry is facing is the lack of drivers, commercial drivers licensed entities or individuals. And, we want to make this an umbrella that covers all aspects of the moving and mobility supply chain. And so there are ways that people can take advantage of this at every level of our organizations, of our organization, and other organizations that are involved in the moving and mobility space. We've got great funding, we've got great leadership, great fundraisers, and we want to be able to give back to the moving and mobility community to be able to help uplift greater professionalism and bring new blood into the industry. And I think the Scholarship Fund does all of that. And it really excites me every single time I talk about it because it provides such advantages for those that need it most. So what do you think, Brian? Do you think that we'll be able to come back? Do you think that we are going to take over again? No, you're shaking your head.
I think after this, I don't know. I think we might be persona non grata. I could see Don and Ann getting asked back, but us, that might be a bridge too far. I want to shout out everybody in the chat who joined us today. Spread the word about the Scholarship Fund. It may not be directly applicable to you, but somebody in your network, I guarantee you, needs that $5,000. Unfortunately, the application deadline is right upon us. It's June 1st, but there's no reason you can't spread that word on our behalf for people who are going to school next year. And again, watch this space. Watch IAM for more information about when we roll out this approved industry training program.
One final word, Brian, if I could. Don't forget IAM's annual meeting. Don't forget October 13th through 16th. It's going to be the first in-person event in the moving and mobility space in about 2 years. The other thing, I have to give him a little credit. Ben Cross is going to be involved in our conference. Ben Cross, we're going to have a virtual and an in-person aspect to the conference. And Ben Cross is going to be the bridge between those two. He's going to be my MC that's going to be able to bring you live and in person into the bar. He's going to bring you live and in person into the opening reception and the closing reception. He's going to make you feel as if you are on site if you're not able to attend in person. So we're really excited. It's a monumental task. And if you get an opportunity, please take advantage of that and dig deep in your pockets and make sure that Don Goldberg spends $10,000, please.
Do it.
Thank you, everybody. Again, thanks to Ben and everybody in the audience. Thanks to Ann. Thanks for Don. And we will see you guys in Orlando. Thanks.
Thank you all.
Au revoir. Bye-bye.
Bye.